This is the 21st season of Bass Talk Live. BTL is presented by Bass Cat Boats, Strike King Lures, Aftco, Pro Guide Batteries, Spro, Gamakatsu, The Bass Tank, Denali Rods, Beatdown Outdoors, and Sunline.
BTL coming at you.
Good morning and welcome to another exciting edition of BTL Bass Talk Live, where we are going to talk about bass fishing. A little bit of a throwback show today. He's making a comeback. He comes around. We'll see. I've got a list of what our guest has done over the past 2 decades, both on and off the water. And I think when it comes to like the Swiss Army knife of the industry, he may be the most underrated guy. Because I started making a list as to what we're talking, MC, we're talking shows, TV shows, competition, all sorts of stuff on this. And now he's still doing stuff in the industry. So we'll get to Byron Velvick here in a moment. It'll be a good show. I'm looking forward to it. There is a MLF heavy hitters going on, and if you guys know, I've been rooming with Blake Schroeder and Matt Steffen, Miles Berghoff in the Opens this year, and Matt Steffen, who fished in the Opens this year, but he qualified for heavy hitters, which is basically show up, and that's 2 tournaments in one. Each round, I think it's like 5, 20, and 100 grand for each round for the biggest bass on Smith Mountain Lake. But you also have to catch them to get to the next round to catch it. Well, for lack of a better term, Steffen sucked for about the first day and a half, and then went on an epic run. I mean, an epic run. Had the most weight yesterday, and jumped into the top 16 cut. I think he had something like 60 pounds or something yesterday there. So they're battling it out. Zach Burge currently in the lead as of 8:34 a.m. Central Time on the 21st of May. And Matt's battling down in 13th, but I expect him to come on strong. So can't wait to have him on the show to talk about that. I will be out of town next week on a little foray. I'm not sure what I'm like really allowed to say or not say about where I am, but when I get the green light, we'll talk about it. But recorded shows next week. It is going to be a smorgasbord of champions. The last 2 Elite Series winners. Tucker Smith is on, and dude, he gives up some details on the big minnow. I mean, not like the secret stuff. I give him props. He's 23 years old. He was one of the few guys to say like, yeah, you know, there's some stuff I'm not going to talk about that. But I think he went really into a lot of badass detail on it. Going to record with Pat Schlopper, talking about his first Elite Series win on the very stingy Sabine River. And then right after the show today, continue a little West Coast vibe. Big Daddy Todd Woods, gonna record with Todd Woods. Really looking forward to that one. Dude has fished a lot and won a lot out on the West Coast, so that'll be a good show. Let's get to before we get to today's guest, I do want to mention, and I don't do this very often, but there is an opportunity in the fishing industry. I'm going to throw this up right there. This is for the Outdoor Brands team that is very kind of well known in the fishing industry. And it just says this. It says Outdoor Brands team is offering a short form video management internship for candidates with experience using TikTok, Instagram, and Facebook Reels and YouTube Shorts. The role requires posting 2 to 3 times a week on a brand page using a mix of supplied and self-generated content. A strong knowledge of crappie and bass fishing is preferred. This is a paid internship with compensation commensurate with the candidate's skill level. I would assume that's another big word that I'm not aware of that means comparable or in relationship to the candidate's skill level. Experience with social media ad management is a bonus but not required. The internship has the potential to lead to a full-time position. So if you are looking to get into the industry, you have that skill set. There's the pictures up there. The link to that application is in the YouTube description of this bio. So, they do stuff with a lot of brands that are also associated with BTL. So if you guys are looking to get into, the industry, quit your job as a dentist, a doctor, a lawyer, and start making TikToks on bass fishing, why not? That sounds like great life advice, doesn't it, Byron?
Sounds like great life advice. I
remember one time at a Forest Wood Cup where you were on stage and you, in a roundabout way, encourage kids to drop out of school to chase their dreams of professional bass fishing. I vividly remember I was covering that cup and you gave this rah-rah speech, and at the end I turned and I looked, I think I was looking at Dan O'Sullivan, and I said, did Byron just tell kids to drop out of school to
wait a minute,
follow their dream of professional bass fishing? And he was like, I think that's what I heard.
I could swear I would, because I always talked about getting a college education because of sponsors. I got a college education. I can't believe I must have had a bad day that day or a brain fart, because I'm always the one saying, man, the reason I had some great sponsors in fishing is because I had a college education, and some of the companies, the owners were like, you're articulate, you can sell. And a lot of the guys dropped out of college. A lot of the guys went back and got their degrees after they were fishing. So it's surprising to hear this, man. You're blowing me away, because I was always like, man, when I go to these kids' youth groups and all these club things, I'm like, stay in school, get a college education. Sponsors will love that. Fish in college. Now they can. We didn't have to back then. So, yeah. Man, you caught me on a weird day. I'm shocked. If you remember that,
I do remember. I remember
that,
because it was an incredible speech. It was more of like a
follow. Sure it was me.
It was. I'm positive it was. Dude, you're unmistakable.
Because I am always telling people college educations help with sponsors. That's like my mantra. So, man, you caught me in a weird paradigm.
I could have misremembered that.
Maybe it was anti-Byron. Maybe one day you ran into anti-Byron and I was wearing two-faced. Or else I'm bipolar. Maybe I got two personalities. Who knows? Can't imagine me saying that, only because I know how much
I may have misremembered. I actually tried to look for the clip. I was unable to find
that would freak me out. That would freak me out if I said drop out of school and fish, because my God, that's the worst advice in the world.
3. I do have 4 clips.
You do?
Yeah. You're just over the course of things that we're going to get into. First of all, I've enjoyed your appearances on Bass After Dark.
Thanks, bro.
Very nice. I like what BTC, Ken Duke, and the team is doing over there.
They love you too, man. Bass After Dark is awesome, and they love you too. And Ken's been on 40 times, he says. He's been a regular for you.
Yeah, Ken has been on. I need to get him back on. I haven't had him on since he he started the Big Bass podcast there with Terry Battisti, and then the Bass After Dark. I actually was in a Men's Warehouse, believe it or not, last week, and they had like a 60% off rack, and they had a purple, like a purple black chested smoking jacket.
No,
that was only like $40 at 60% off.
Tell me you bought it.
Unfortunately, it was too small. I tried it on. I told my fiance Cord, I said, if this fits, I said, we're leaving this Men's Warehouse with this smoking jacket. And she was a little bit concerned as to why, but once I explained to her,
you just made me think of something funny, Matt. I have a jacket, and now next time I do Bass After Dark I'm sure Ken's watching this, but he doesn't know the jacket, but I'll be wearing a jacket on Bass After Dark next time I'm fortunate enough to be. I
do, like, every time I'm on, like, I've been on twice with Johnny Johnson from Bass Band.
Yes,
and the dude always looks like he's like one move away from finding like the Ark of the Covenant. Like he's like, what is Indiana Jones searching for? Isn't that what he's searching? He's always got like a hat with sunglasses in a dimly lit room, and I'm like, man, I need to step my headwear and apparel up for the Bass After Dark appearance.
I think I'm gonna do the same. Today it's just wearing the sponsor garb and showing off the people that believe in you. But you're right, I got to wear the jacket for Bass After Dark next time. That's epic.
Yeah. So you're full time in Texas. You're a Texas guy now.
Full-time Texas. Yeah, I'm raising my daughter, so I'm kind of staying close. She graduates 8th grade today. Tonight we have her graduation ceremony, and so I'm I'm with her and you know, kind of glued to San Antonio area because of my parenting. I'm doing it alone, and you know, she's in that formative years and she needs to have dad around a lot when she's 13, 14, 15. So I'm staying close to this girl. And you know, I have a shirt that says, yes, I have a beautiful daughter. I also have a shotgun, a shovel, and an alibi. So that's one of my shirts that I wear that embarrasses the heck out of her.
How often do you get on the water these days? I'm trying to find a picture here to show how far this goes back. But how long do you get on the water? How often?
I get on the water. The cool thing is I go guiding out here. I'm guiding during the day sometimes in the area. I actually have some, you know, we'll talk about that too. But I'll drop my daughter off at school, go to a local lake, fish until it's time to pick her up, and do like half-day guide trips around my daughter's school schedule. And then I'm guiding and fishing a little bit. I just do a little bit of guiding around, like I said, her school schedule, and then fun fishing with my friends, because there's a lake out here where the water's so low you can't be on it unless you have a slip. And I ponied up and got a slip for that lake because there's hydrilla in there. There's a ton of fish in there. And man, these lakes, it's like having a private lake in San Antonio. It's pretty cool.
What's a fishing scene like in San Antonio? You hear a lot about, you know, East Texas, that Rayburn, Toledo Bend area, Central Texas with the Classic there, a lot of those DFW lakes that are popping off. Then you hear about kind of the OHIVs and things that are going on like that. But as far as like that San Antonio area, what's the fishing scene like?
You know, there's a huge fishing scene. There's a bunch of kids up in Austin that, you know, throw swim baits on all the Lady Bird Lake and all the lakes around there. You got Travis. You got a lot of versatility in this area. You got lakes that have no grass whatsoever. You have some lakes that have a ton of grass in them. You got the wood. You got some smallmouth in some of the lakes, like Canyon Lake, and there's a lot of small lakes that a lot of my friends that guide, they hit a series of all these lakes around the Guadalupe River and on I didn't even know there was another Colorado River, but there's a Texas Colorado River, and there's a chain of lakes on the Texas Colorado River scene. And I'm learning about all these really cool small fisheries. And the only problem we have is a drought. So a lot of the lakes are inaccessible now. Like we were talking earlier about Canyon Lake, you know, and that lake was amazing, but it's dried up to the point now where it still has water in it, but, you know, no ramps to launch. You know, Amistad is really low. You know Amistad real well, Matt. I know you do. And it's a really strong fishing scene. Our struggle here is the severe drought we're in. That's the problem.
So you have like a full-on bass boat on Canyon, though.
I got Camus. You know, I love Earl Bentz. I love Camus. And so Michelle at Mercury and Camus, they hooked me up with a 2024 Camus. I loaded it up with Garmin electronics. It's got forward-facing sonar and everything. And I did a fully loaded tournament-ready, best you can get 21-foot Camus. It's in a slip on a hydro hoist because there are zebra mussels in Canyon. So I'm guiding on Canyon. And I know we'll talk about it later, but I'm actually putting some the guide trips on eBay now, which was a great idea. Brody, thank you, Brody Roderick of Mr. Guru of eBay.
Brody of the Lake.
Brody of the Lake, eBay, man. He told me.
I do the Halloween show with Travis Manson and Smallmouth Crush with Brody every year. He dresses like a skeleton pirate. Yep.
Isn't he great? He is the hippie cool dude. Blind Melon. Brody Broderick is Blind Melon incorporated into a single fishing human being. And I love Brody. And Brody of the Lake is
dude.
What?
Sorry, keep going. I'm pulling up Canyon Lake. I'm gonna show this screen. This looks like this is not what I was picturing when I thought of Canyon. I was thinking of Choke Canyon.
That's like Canyon Lake right there, yeah. And it's full of grass now.
Super clear.
Dude, it's fed by the Guadalupe.
And like mountains.
It looks like it looks like a San Diego lake. I fell in love with this lake when my buddy Danny Uribe showed it to me or sold me on going there. That lake has giant stripers, big bass, hydrilla everywhere. And Matt, there's probably 8, 10, 12 boats on that lake that are able to be.
That's it right there?
That's the
river that leads into it.
That's the river leading into it. And there's those are the rivers leading into it, but that's Canyon Lake. And you can't get on it unless you have a boat, you know, unless you have a slip. And I got a slip. So if anybody wants to go out on that thing, that any of your Bass Talk Live guys want to fly into San Antonio and spend a day on the lake, I'm digging the fact I got a private lake to practice forward-facing sonar and test out new Livingston lures and catch giant bass. And there's nobody out there. It's the best thing in the whole world. And I'm sure the other guys are mad we're talking about it right now on Bass Talk Live.
How many boats are on the lake usually?
You won't see nobody during the weekdays. And on the weekends, you might see half, maybe 10 or 12 or 15, all together. Like I take my daughter tubing out there with her friends now. We don't have to worry about getting run over by jet skis. There's not wakeboard boats everywhere. There's literally, even on the busy holiday weekends, you might see a few boats here and there, but it's just the most amazing. It's like a private lake in San Antonio because there's no ramps available. You can only get a slip. You have to spend a 1-year lease on it. You can't just go month to month. And it's expensive. It's the price of an apartment. So that's why I'm guiding to help pay for the darn slip. But the lake it's a great field testing place for Livingston. We're having a blast out there. I'll tell you what, it's so much fun to take because they're based in San Antonio. So we run out there. It's 50 minutes away from the office at Livingston to go test new baits.
So are you working for Livingston or are you just doing the eBay thing? Or what are you like? What's your mode of livelihood these days?
Yeah, right. Because I retired from fishing, and you don't get paid to be a dad. That's the thing. You might be super dad, and you might take your kid to school every day. People are like, "Hey, you still fishing tournaments?" I'm like, if there's a tournament that starts around 9 a.m. and ends around 2:30 in the afternoon on weekdays, I could fish it. But there's not a lot of tour events that are weekdays 9 a.m. to 2:30. So to answer your question, I'm working with Livingston, product development, marketing. Okay. We're doing all this cool stuff. A whole bunch of new baits are coming out. I'm working with Trica. They got new Swimbait rods coming out. So the Predator Swimbait rods. And then eBay, bro. I'm just selling everything because I'm not fishing tournaments anymore. What you see behind me, this is crazy. All that is everything behind me is stuff I'm selling. It's like I got this huge eBay. I call it Byron's bunker for a reason.
Yeah,
Matt, I'm not going to fish wiggle warts anymore. I'm not going to fish all that Berkeley stuff I have anymore. I'm not going to fish anything besides a few swim baits. So sell all the big swim baits you got. Sell all the Berkeley baits you got. The reels. I got a ton of reels. Trica came out with reels, so I'm blowing out all my Shimano's, my Duckets. Livingston. I'm throwing Livingston hard baits. I don't need all these bandits and wiggle warts and Pradco baits. And it's just I'm not fishing tournaments, so it's time to dump everything I've had for 30 years. Thank you for showing it all off. But
no, that's interesting. You don't have any of the 4-inch discontinued black and blue power lizards, do you?
I absolutely do.
You have 4-inch black and blue power lizards?
Yeah, if you want power lizards, dude, there's a whole case of power baits right over here. It would take me a little while. I'm not gonna do it on your show. No. If there's something you want, Matt, because a lot of guys, like I went on Bass After Dark, and Brian the Carpenter threw out some baits he wanted me to put to the side. And so if there's anything Berkeley ever made from way back in the day, the old stuff like the chigger craw, crazy leg chigger craw, or the pulse worm, or anything that Berkeley ever made that you want, Matt, just tell me and I'll put it to the side for you.
All right.
Anything, because I was with Berkeley for years and they sent me just giant, huge amounts of stuff. Yeah. So now I'm doing swim bait Sundays where I blow out all my swim baits. I'm doing $20 Tuesdays where I put all my reels on for $20 auction and then just let them go. Like opening bid $20. I don't care if it's $100 reel, $150 reel, like the Corrado, the Shimano Corrado, just $20. I mean, dude, you called me the Swiss Army knife, and this is a Bass Cat, a brand new Bass Cat. I was laughing when you said it. That's a Bass Cat knife that I have. And I was dying because you said, you're the Swiss Army knife.
That was like a compliment, meaning like you've done absolutely everything in the industry. I don't think many people realize that.
Dude, I'm flattered, bro. Thank you for calling me the Swiss Army knife of fishing. I think that's so cool.
You mentioned the swim bait thing. So obviously what comes to my head there, and I actually had a chat with Skeet about this last month when I had him on the show. What was the history of line throughs? Because I obviously the first time they went down to Amistad for the Elite Series, I feel like some of those Ospreys were line throughs, but to me, the first, like, I don't want to call it like a precursor to the harness 6-inch swim baits that we're seeing now and stuff, but I mean, there's like a line through war going on between like Milliken and Zaldane and all. I mean, everyone has it, and I go back. I still have it. I should have got them. Like, they're out in the garage right now. I still have some of the Rego BV 3D 7-inch line throughs that you kind of made famous. Was that like the first kind of finished? Like, where does that stand in the lineup of like history of 6 to 8 inch line through swim baits, Byron?
Dude, it's one of the Osprey, and this is it right here. And I'm putting these on eBay too. So again, I won't use all the ones I have, but that is right there, the Rago BV3D line through. And these were the early ones, man. You know, Jerry Rago brought this to me before Clear Lake when I won Clear Lake. You know, the second time I won Clear Lake. First time I won on a Bass Tricks. Second time I won it on this bait right here. And to answer your question, there were the Ospreys, but they had the flat top. And this was kind of where Rago wanted to go to the 3D thing. He wanted a 3-dimensional because, and I have those too. But do you remember the old, another line through? Do you remember these? Matt, can you name this bait?
Was that a California Swim Babe?
Dude, you're so good. That was the California Swim Babes. Art Berry.
Yep.
Art Berry and the California Swim Babes. Again, Osprey, California Swim Babes. And then Rago wanted to get away from this flat top, you know, so that's where the line through was just starting to hit. And he walks up and gives me this prototype and says, you and I need to work on building this thing out. And then I went ahead and won Clear Lake on it. And it was the 3D, which just gave it that upper back to it. But to your point, you're spot on. I want to say Osprey, California Swim Babes, Rago. You know, what was that? That was like 14 years ago.
Yeah, that would have been March of 2010, I believe. I think was it Rago on the boat watching you win that tournament on his bait? Wasn't Rago in the boat watching you win?
Not in the boat. There was a whole. I would put.
No, he was in the gallery, not your boat, but like he was in the gallery watching.
I would pull up to the spot, Byron's Corner, they call it.
Yeah.
I would put buoys out and I would tell everybody, just stay past those buoys. Like I would drop a series of buoys because the corner was, nobody knew where I was going. And I'm fishing this corner. That's where I want my ashes dropped after I've told Kent Brown this. Like when I pass away, please cremate me and put my ashes in Byron's Corner.
Kent Brown, the West Coast czar. He's done the longest running weekly radio show covering all things bass fishing, specifically on the West Coast.
There you go. So that, to your point, yeah, Rago was out there. My buddy Rod Lee was out there. Zona was in the boat with me for the first half of the morning when it was just a blitzkrieg, buttering the toast. You remember everybody at these, I go to the Bassmaster Classic, like, dude, I'll still remember you buttering the toast. Oh my God, you're going to it. There it is.
I tell you, I do. This is my full-time job, Byron. I mean, awesome. I don't just jump on and do it. I told you I got everything queued up for you.
You got me buttering the toast on the Rago BB3D. Oh my God, Zona was losing his mind.
I was just waiting for a good transition. Just wanted it to be smooth. I didn't want to just hate you with the videos over and over.
You are the king. Bass Talk Live, you are the man to show that right now. At the Bassmaster Classic and ICAST, to this day, if I do a show, people walk up and talk to me about that right there. They're like, dude, let's talk about you with a paper plate and some goo buttering the toast of your swim baits. And to this day, I don't think guys do it nearly as much as I knew it was important back then. I was on tour. I was not talking about that until the camera was in the boat. I never told people what I was doing until there it is, ESPN filming me. Yeah. And there's the, oh my God, I love that you have this, bro. This is like memory lane. I'm loving it.
What exactly was that scent?
That was a stuff called hot sauce by my buddy in California. Made this stuff called hot sauce. They may still have it. BV Secret Sauce. There it is. Hot sauce by Edge Products. The dude was from Orange County like me. He's a jeweler. That stuff was great. You could butter the toast, bro. You could slide it on there. Here's the thing about putting something on a swim bait, whether it's a hard bait or soft bait. When you add scent to it, you make it slippery, you make it more, but it has a coating on it, so you get better hook penetration. And anybody watching this that fishes any swim bait, I know it's a pain in the butt to do it, but on soft plastics or hard plastics, add a scent to it. And when a fish gets in behind it, they pick up a scent trail. So now you got a follower, and he's not just looking at a hard bait, he's picking up a scent. And he's like, wait a minute, I smell something. And he's tacking it. And so now he's picking up a smell of something. If he hits it, you're going to get better hook penetration. And that's something to this day people don't even address nearly as much as they should. If I was on tour, I would not be talking about this.
Well, I mentioned that. So Takumi Ito has taco sauce, and it's a shrimp sauce. And it's like a dual thing where he soaks his minnows or whatever odd looking JDM plastic that he's throwing that week, where he soaks it in the secret sauce. And then the taku powder is a shrimp based powder that he then, think of it like bread and crappie fillets, how you put them in and then you shake it.
Yeah.
And then when it gets wet, it's by Nori's. it like creates kind of a slick, like almost like a skin coating on the bait. And it's like a real big thing right now. Like that's
cool.
But I thought it was interesting. It seemed like when you kind of did the paper plate, it sent, no pun intended, but it sent the fishing world into a frenzy as far as coating baits with gels and all that stuff. But then it kind of just went away for a decade or so to where you didn't talk about it as much. And now over the last 3 or 4 years, especially with putting baits in front of highly pressured fish that have seen a lot of baits, trying to trigger them, being able to watch fish that are coming up and either saying yes or no to your bait, scent is now, I think, back in the equation as something very important, especially at high level tournaments. So it's kind of come full circle, almost like Jinko jeans or corduroy, so to speak.
Wow. 14 years ago, who knew? I mean, I agree with you. It went away for a long time and I had no idea. I know you're hip to all the things going on now. And it's cool to hear it's come back because once you retire from fishing, people always ask, I can't watch it every day. I can't watch the tournaments anymore. I can't be in it and watching it any more than I have to for Livingston as their, new product development coordinator and everything else. But to be a fan of the sport is hard because it was a forced retirement and I did it earlier. So it's difficult to watch. And I'm glad to hear these young guys are using scent again, because to this day, the paper plate and the goo that I slathered on it, and I can't say enough about putting scent, even on hard baits. I know you got to reapply, but it has merit in fishing, especially now with forward facing sonar, because you can see the reaction of the fish. You can watch them turn off or turn on to it. That's crazy.
Yeah, it really, I think started again like 4 years ago.
Wow.
I definitely, the younger guys are big into it, especially. Like I would say the guys in the 20s, they spend a lot of time doctoring, juicing, doing whatever you want to call it. But it's kind of like you were with that until there's something in the boat where you have to watch it. They're not voluntarily saying, hey, here's the process of how I'm doing it. I think Taku's an interesting example. He's obviously got his picture on the shrimp powder and sauce and stuff. So he's trying to move that product for Nori's, but a little bit of an underground deal going on with the scent, especially with those 20 to 25-year-old dudes.
And I got one of those dudes. I got this young kid. He's an up and coming tournament angler. And this weekend, he wants 2 days with me this weekend. Fortunately, my daughter's going to go out to a birthday party on the coast. So I'm doing a private guided educational swimbait tour with swimbait lesson for 2 days with this guy. And I'm taking the set with me. We're talking about exactly what we're talking about here, because he referenced, he wants to learn everything that I know about swimbaits for the last 30 years, both hard and soft swimbaits on Canyon Lake. And we're going to spend 2 days out there. And this is going to be one of the subjects I'm going to talk about is scenting my swim baits and what he saw 14 years ago when he was probably 8 years old watching ESPN. But, I was scenting baits and he's asked me, teach me everything you know about swim baits for 30 years for 2 days on Canyon Lake. And that's going to be a key thing to kind of listen to what he knows. To your point about what's currently happening, because he's a competitive tournament young angler, he just wants to refine his swim bait skills. Like he's a really good all around angler, but he's like, dude, I need help with swim baits. And I'm like, well, for 2 days, I'll do that for you. I'll spend 2 days. If we catch them or not, doesn't matter. You're going to learn everything I know about swim baits.
Are you a glide bait and a big plastics guy, or when I think of you, I think primarily of the big plastic, the boot tails, the square tails, the big chunks of plastic swim baits, not as much the big glide baits, the hard baits.
So right when I was getting ready to retire, my retirement came in 2016. I'm glad you asked that. And this is before Livingston asked me to make a glide bait. I was throwing the GAN crafts. I had a couple other homemades. I got some on eBay, actually, some Brian's Bees and all that stuff, these prototypes. These are dated, from back in the day. But they're
jointed claw 178. If you couldn't get your hands on a negotiator, that was the next best option back in the day.
Exactly, Matt. The original primitive glides. And like I said, I'm selling a bunch on eBay right now and listing a bunch more, but those baits intrigued me and I crushed them at Havasu. Todd Woods is coming up next. Yeah. And Todd and I both know there it is.
That's a blue alumni that has actually, the foil has been the foil has been eaten off of the sides of it.
Man.
So I'm not throwing it because I'm afraid with all the hook rash that the water's going to get into the wood. So I'm actually going to try to get Frank Scalish to repaint that. You look at all that hook rash on it's even got the silencers on the inside.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, like that was, dude, you'll never believe who I got that off of. I got this off of Grant Goldbeck probably 15 years ago.
Hold on, I gotta show you something. Hold on.
Okay. I need to get him on the show and see what Grant Goldbeck's up to. Byron's
so check this out
around the bunker. Okay.
No, check this out. So then here's the cool thing is that Livingston was like, dude, if you can come out with a glide bait, Livingston wanted to make it. These have, remember the old True Tungstens?
Yeah.
You can pull that pin and you can change the weight in them.
Yeah, they had a trout and they had a bluegill.
Yeah. So I wanted to do a long body because I feel you get more bites on this one. I think the bass are more receptive to the I like the Gancraft. I like the glide baits that are more like this than this. This is a pretty big challenge. You'll get a lot of followers on this, but you don't get you get bit on it, but not as much in tournaments. You get bit more with these. But True Tungsten used to have a thing where you could pull the pin and change the weight in them. So I told Livingston, when we design a glide bait, I want to be able to make it so that it can be subsurface or it can sink really deep. And I can pull this thing out, take the lead balls out of it, put tungsten balls in it, and then that thing can glide 20, 25, 30 feet down with tungsten. And you can throw it out there and it sinks like a rock. Glide bait that sinks like a rock, but then you can slow roll it and feel it pulsing in the rod really deep. So I'm running these baits over like deep brush piles, deep submerged trees. And thank God Livingston let me have my run with glide baits, because I'm like, guys, we can kind of copy something in the weighting division that True Tungsten did. They went out of business.
So I think it's B Venom 8 right there.
The B Venom 8 and the Venom, there it is, the Venom and the Viper. The Byron Velvick Venom, that's the elongated body I like. And then there's the Viper. We do a 6 and 8 inch in that. And what's cool, Matt, is these baits have that sound technology. If you look at that bait on forward-facing sonar, the signal is insane because it's got a microchip, a battery, and a speaker in it. You know, Booyah just came out with this jerk bait. It's called the Flashpoint series. They're trying to add metal to hard baits to make them look better. Livingston has all that built in. Like they got a circuit board, a battery, and a speaker in the body. So the signal on forward-facing sonar, this thing shows up like an airplane coming in on a radio control tower.
I never thought about that. There's a lot of hardware in there, dude. I gotta be honest. So when all this came out, there was like a period of like laser lure and things like that. And I think a lot of people thought, the sound stuff, Livingston, it's going to go that way. It'll be around a while. They're going to spend a lot of money in the industry. They're going to sponsor everybody. And then you're not going to hear from them after 5 years. No bullshit. Bullshit. It's impressive that Livingston is still around and seems like they're still producing lures and selling things and doing innovation. I mean, have you seen
their new stuff? Have you seen their whole new model of line? There's a couple pros that we're not allowed to talk about yet that are coming on board that are big names. Like I can't say who, but they're testing the lures. They're like, we had no idea you had this expansive a product line. And here's the reason why they have staying power. They are crushing the muskie business. They are huge in Europe. Sounds like
that. It looks like they've got all sorts of the muskie stuff.
Massive, dude. They're massive in muskie, and they're international. So bass fishing is just a small part of Livingston, but everything has sound in it. So everything gives off the sound, even their frog, dude. They make a frog that has a distressed baitfish sound. So imagine throwing a frog out there and it sits on a grass thing and it sounds like a darn frog. Like how cool at Choke Canyon, there's grass everywhere. So we go out there and we throw the frog out there in the grass. You just let it sit there. It's going ribbit, 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 ribbit. I mean, these things make the sound of the distressed bait fish that they're replicating. So I did the swim baits for them to answer your question, the hard baits, but now with forward-facing sonar, dude, I am lit up with Livingston on forward-facing sonar because I see these baits like a beacon. And with forward-facing sonar, when you stop that bait, and it either starts to slowly fall or suspends or rises, you can watch that fish come up and just smoke it because you know it's giving off the sound of the distressed bait fish. It's been cool to do that for Livingston. And the pros that are coming, the pros we're going to sign this year it's gonna blow the industry away.
I have a Livingston story for you. So
I hope it's a good one.
I'm gonna do a whole show on this. It's gonna take some research, but I did that World Series of Bass, The Dream reality TV show back when Livingston was brand new. It was exactly, no one's heard of it. It was on NBC Sports. It was produced by Carico. Sandra Rankin was the host of it, along with a dude named Joe Habib, who was like the money man behind it. He was doing this basically poker style tournament series, and it was $10,000 entry fee. It's going to be $1 million to the winner. Had a bunch of pros in it, like McClellan was involved with it, a couple other guys, and so he had this 8-person reality show. And basically, what you won if you won the reality show, you're on TV the whole time, and then you got a $10,000 ticket into the main event, which was the $1 million tournament. So you had to like submit all your applications and videos and all that. And it was on Grand Lake. And I was like, well, hell yeah, I'm in on that. So I submitted it. I ended up getting selected. It turns out like some of the guys that were on it are still like James Biggs, who ended up winning the TBF National Championship, Living the Dream package, was on tour. Ryan Salzman was in that, who was on, went on to be on the BPT, Fish of the Opens now. Brandon Dickinson was in that, who works in the industry now. I was in it. Ken Ma was on it. That's how I got to know Ken Ma on the West Coast, who's won like pretty much everything out there. It was a hell of a group, right?
Yeah.
And Tyler Mobberly was in there, a bunch of guys. Anyway, long story short, Livingston sponsored it, and they had like the Livingston Lure Challenge where we had to fish Duck Creek, and we could only use Livingston lures.
Okay.
And they'd just come out, and they had the crankbait that. And at the time, I lived in a unfinished, like open concept loft above a liquor store in Norman, Oklahoma.
Okay.
So all of my tackle was in the walk-in closet in Rubbermaid tubs. So I do it. We do this show. I'm definitely doing the entire show on this. Bring everyone back, because the dude like bailed, disappeared, didn't pay for anything, and it just flopped. Long story short, I'm in my trendy 2-story loft. And I keep hearing, well, it never occurred to me. This is, weeks after. And every time it was dark, I would hear, and I'm like, it's a cricket. So I start ripping through and I can't hear it. And I like move stuff around and it would stop for like a week. But then when I would go in, because I had to like move all the boxes every time I like had to get clothes and stuff out, it would start again. So it wasn't like constant. Long story short, it took me over a month to figure out that what was happening was I had tossed those Livingston crankbaits in a Rubbermaid tub, and they were touching other parts of metal that was completing the circuit. And when that crankbait was jostled around, it would make that noise continuously for like weeks on end.
Oh, you had one of the very first. Those were first generation Livingston.
It was the first generation. Yeah,
first generation. When you fished them, sometimes they'd stay wet, and then you would pull them out, and like to your point, if they were still touching other stuff, and you'd be sitting in your boat going I go, there's a cricket, and those early Livingstons, you're like, I can hear my lure going, and those things have like 300 or 400 hours of battery life.
Yeah.
So they're not going to shut up, man. It's called wet life. What?
It was very interesting. Yeah, it drove me nuts.
It's not even it's wet life. So you got to have that thing in the water for 300 to 400 hours for that battery, unless, of course, the thing shorts out and it drives you crazy in your apartment. In the old generation ones, the very first primitive ones that we had, those were old school. But I had that in the very first generation. I remember my boat making that sound, and I'm like, I know that shouldn't be happening. I have to go find which crankbait it was and why it got water on it and how it was doing that. And oh, that's a great story it's a duck collar. Basically, Livingston lure is a duck collar for fishing, but your duck collar wouldn't shut up.
Yeah. I see on there that they have like a plopper style bait, and I know I want to talk to you. about
the Plop Master, dude. Okay, so here's the story. I just fished the U.S. Open at Havasu. I had almost 20 pounds without forward-facing sonar. So like Ish Monroe at Clear Lake.
Havasu or Mojave?
Mojave, I'm sorry, correct.
Yeah.
Mojave, this 2 years ago, the last Mojave they had. I was throwing the Plop Master exclusively. I had right at 20 pounds, all smallmouth, And I think I may have won that day the highest weight for non-forward facing sonar because I shut all my electronics off. I was running shallow, throwing the Plopmaster exclusively, and those fish were spooky as hell. So you had to shut all your electronics off, and I crushed them on that Plopmaster. But I told what's his name when I walked up on stage, I go, dude, that's probably the biggest weight today for non-forward facing sonar because it's dominated now.
Yeah.
Lake Mojave is dominated, and the U.S. Opens are dominated by forward facing sonar. But I know you got a great story about that style bait, and I'd love for you to tell it.
Well, I went back and did a timeline. So like in 2013, 14, 15, we were with Duck It Fishing. We did the Duck It on tour where we spend time in the boat with the guy and kind of follow him throughout every tournament. So I was with you at the Sacramento River. That's the one where you jacked your back up, isn't it?
That's the one where I broke my back on the last day coming in. Yep.
But in practice, I was rolling with you. So you have to go back to 2015. So
was it 15?
Yeah, it was 2015. It was the one that Justin Lucas won. Amart got second, Dean got third, Ish got fourth. Like it was murderer's row of like West Coast royalty. And little backstory on this. So the first time almost everybody had heard of a plopper would have been in October of 2015. Right. It was the first year that I fished the Bassmaster Opens for the year, and that was the Watson tournament on Table Rock, where he threw the black plopper, and then all of a sudden on the final day, you had half the field that was throwing this Whopper Plopper that was a Larry Dahlberg River to Sea musky bait that had been in a bass size and had been on shelves for years. And it was not the first time I had seen that, because when I did Duck It on tour with you in April of that year, you had Whopper Ploppers in your boat for a year at least, because I remember you saying, hey, my buddies have been catching them on this like long before this tournament. And you're like, it should work in this tournament. And you busted out one of the 190s. And I had none of us had ever seen one before. And, I'm just there videoing it. But I just remember your first reaction, like it was one of those weird, it's like an A-rig reaction the first time you see it. It was interesting. You were not sold on it. I will say this, even though it was 8 months before the thing blew up.
Right. I remember throwing it out there with you, and I'm reeling it along, and I'm trying to pause it and walk it or see whatever. I'm like, all you do is just reel this thing in. This tail in the back goes, and I'm looking at it, and we're making fun. We're kind of joking about it, but I'm like, River to Sea gave me these baits, and they're prototypes. They're just for the pro staff guys. We're testing them out, making sure they don't helicopter and spin, and they're weighted and keeled properly and everything else. And, Larry Dahlberg invented the thing, and it's up to us to market it and promote it and figure it out. But to your point, I remember you and I both kind of chuckled, and I threw it a couple times, and, I kick myself now, Matt. If I knew now what I knew, in 2000, when I first won the first Bassmaster and had 83 pounds, if I would have stuck with swim baits and thrown them a lot harder on tour, I would have been this massive force. But I would throw it, and then I'd go to what everybody else was doing. And I would throw it like the Whopper Plopper. I would throw it, but then I went what everybody else was doing.
Well, you had to do that to survive, didn't you?
The baits we had. What?
You had to do that to survive, though.
Yeah, and so it's hard to commit to, these glide baits now, like, a glide bait or a plopper or whatever. You had to survive, but boy, now you see how much they've blown up, and you're like, how more dominant could I have been if I would have really just put the pedal to the metal and been like Dave Glebe with a flip and pitch and stick? I would have been Byron the Swimbait guy and never put it down before Steve Kennedy ever even thought about it. Like, I talked to Steve when he first discovered them. I'm already 15 years into swim baits when Steve Kennedy is like in awe of this new thing, that this baby he found, and all the other tour guys. And I'm thinking, man, I could have really done some serious damage on the West Coast and on the national tour if I would have had the mentality to just say, I'm going to go big or go home every tournament. But I always caved in and threw the Wiggle Ward at Table Rock and, the Missouri Lakes, and did everything that everybody else did, not knowing what if, you know what I mean, Matt?
Yeah.
Like,
well, I think a lot of guys, I think that's evolution as an angler. Yeah. I think if you're evolving as an angler, you look back and you say, I wish I knew now. I wish I knew 2 years ago or 3 years ago what I know now. Like, I think that's proof that you're evolving as an angler.
Sure. Absolutely.
Like, I mean, I look back to like the open on a couple opens that I've top 10, and I was like, well, why? I wish I'd known about the minnow a year earlier.
Yeah.
Or I wish, like how many times have you thought back and you're like, dude, you have that moment where you're like, damn, those fish would have smoked that if I had known about it. But you only do what you know how to do at the time. It's when you're not evolving as an angler. If you look back and go, yeah, I still wouldn't have done anything different. Do you think the glides, do you think the big swim baits are popping off again because of forward facing sonar, and people are able to not only cast it to fish, but are able to see how those fish react to it now more so than just the month or two out of the year where they can visually watch them come up during that pre to post spawn time period?
A long time ago, I remember, they used to ask me when swim baits were just a West Coast thing, and they're like, hey, do you think, it'll ever be a national bait? To this day, forward facing sonar, yes, but even guys, and I get messages now, I go to these things, I get emails on eBay, I get all these guys buying these things. They're fishing off the shore in Wisconsin and Minnesota and Maryland, and they're like, dude, I'm catching them on glide baits in Minnesota, Maryland, Wisconsin. And it's this thing where I was always saying, this is not just a West Coast bait. This is not just because they stock trout in Southern California and Northern California. They got kokanee salmon and there's hitch at Clear Lake. This is a national bait. And now with forward-facing sonar and like with the Livingston baits, being able to see the reaction, absolutely, it's exploding. And there's a renaissance right now. I told this to Livingston. I was with the owner and the marketing, Eric, yesterday in a meeting. And I said, guys, if you're watching Bassmaster right now, these guys are throwing crankbaits and jerkbaits. And the hard bait thing is coming really strong now into forward-facing sonar right now, like the last 3 months, especially what just happened at Lake Fork. Livingston's at this precipice right now where we got the loudest visual bait, the easiest to see bait on the market by far. So now glide baits are huge and swim baits are huge because that's an easy thing to see. And we always talked about followers, but now on forward facing sonar, if you don't have it, you're still going to catch fish on it all over the country. But if you have it, you can, I always used to tell people, throw your swim bait, no matter which one you're throwing, before it gets to the boat, make sure you pause it, because I won't say 50%, but 30 to 40% of my bites come when I hesitate that bait at the boat. And that bass is following that bait, that swim bait, that big bait. He thinks it's real. He's not sure. When that bait stops at the boat because the bait sees the boat or senses the boat, that's when the bass takes a shot at it. You know what I mean, Matt? Like, and the hardest thing for an angler, I'm telling you guys this right now, but in your audience, Matt, our whole lives, we've reeled up and cast. We reel up and cast. We've done this since we were kids. So it's hard to reel up and stop every single time because our whole lives, and I'm telling you this, but it's still not easy for me to do for 8 hours a day. Forward-facing sonar, you can actually see them following it. Before, I just had a hope they were following it. And out of how many times was I surprised when I would stop it, and from down deep under somewhere, I would see this giant bass come up and tomahawk my swim bait. And it would be like, there's another one. And I would tell my co-anglers or my observers, I go, dude, you need to pause it every time. And sometimes in the course of the turn, I'd be like, there he is right there. I'm, oh my gosh. And you're jack pulling these hot big ones right at the boat because they were following it. Now with forward facing sonar, we can respond to that. I can take this glide bait now and I can pop it and turn it around to look at the fish on forward facing sonar. I never could do that before. I see a fish following it on a glide bait. You can do that thing where you're following it. There's one following it. You go pop and you turn that sucker around and it looks at it. Oh, you got some cool video, don't you?
Watch this. This is Brandon 2 years ago.
There it is. There it is right there. Yeah.
He has one that's even better this year where he literally like violently figure eights it in a 7-pounder, just drills it. But I mean, this is what you're talking about right here. Like,
Matt, they used to eat it at the side of the boat off your boat because they believed it was real. Your follower comes and you do that right there. I did that. I've done that hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of times, even on camera with my marshals and my co-anglers and my observers. And I go, guys, this is a key thing. And I'm going to tell everybody right now, I'm telling you this, I'm talking about it, but the next time I go fishing, I promise you, if you watch me, I won't stop it every time, even though I know I should, because since I was 8 years old, when I got close to the boat, I think about my next cast and I throw it out there. And I think about my next cast and I throw it out there. But dude, if you pause it, out of nowhere, they'll come eat it. Forward facing sonar, now you can see them coming. Pop that swim bait on a glide bait, like the Vipers and the Venoms, and get it to turn around. Hunt for Red October, it does a crazy Ivan. You remember that, Matt? The crazy Ivan? It literally turns around and looks back at the fish.
Yep.
Steve Kennedy,
the 180.
He crapped. We were in my pool at Amistad, and I'm showing Steve Kennedy everything I know about swim baits way back in the day when we were on tour together. And I said, Steve, check this out. And I kept turning the bait around. He goes, oh my God, that's the craziest thing I've ever seen. And I go, dude, you can hunt for Red October, crazy Ivan it. So it turns around, looks right at the bass that's following it. And that's what you got with forward-facing sonar now is you can see them, you can watch them eat it, or you can watch them follow it to the boat. And I never had that ability, but I would always stop it just because I was hoping I had a follower every cast if I could.
I also think there's a big thing to where in today's social media and stuff before, if they wanted to watch a guy throw a big bait, they had to watch the 1 hour Bassmaster show where you're doing it once a year, where you make the TV on it. Now you can get on Ben's channel, Chris's channel, Brandon's, Carl's, all the guys. And, you know, you're going, oh, yeah, look at that thing that ate that sucker right next to the boat. You just get a lot of confidence in being able to watch it and see it. I mean, dude, like you can go back and watch Polinick with a drone up in the air on Champlain, walking a clutch next to a crib and a 5-pounder coming up and eating it. And you're like, oh yeah, I need that in my life. Like beforehand, back when you did it, like it was, you know, this big mysterious thing. And you're watching the TV because you want to see how that went down because it's so much a foreign concept to you.
It's exploded. I was just at the Bassmaster Classic and I saw the line every morning. Were you at the Classic?
Oh yeah.
Did you see the line for Piz Baits? The Piz guy?
Yeah.
The Piz guy had a line every morning, and every morning he would run a sale.
So did the Clutch guy, and so did Oliver Nye, and so did all the guys.
Yeah. And I wish we would have had our swim baits there, and we will next year. But I was like, God, this glide bait thing. And I mean, everybody's standing in line for these glide baits. And I'm like, gosh, we have one that makes all this sound and it's easy to see on forward-facing sonar and you can change the weight of it. How are we not like crushing it like these other guys? And we're going to. It's like the best kept secret glide baits. But that's those people standing in line, dude, they don't all have forward-facing sonar. They were just people that are into the big bait from all over the country, you know, and I went back and I used to have to sell the writers, the national writers, that this is more than just a regional, you know, West Coast, you know, California, you know, Oregon, Nevada, you know, Arizona swim bait thing. This will be a big thing around the country, and it has exploded. Forward facing or not, swim baits has absolutely exploded. It's crazy right now how hot it is. And Matt, you've been on it for what, 10, 15 years now?
Yeah, I think it would have been the first time I really, and when I got it, was when Polinick caught him on it at Bull Shoals, 2012.
Yeah.
Somewhere around there. He had like a box and he had the negotiators and he had the Gan crafts and he had the HPHs. There's a couple high powered herrings in there, I believe.
Dude, can I tell you my best Polinick story?
Yeah.
Polinick was out of Coeur d'Alene, Idaho, and he was this young kid and he was traveling around the country. And I noticed something about him. If Biffle did a seminar on pitching and flipping, Polinick was in the audience. You know, you'd see Polinick all around. He was just kind of hanging around. And I did a seminar on swim baits one time at some event. I was there for Triton, I believe, and it was a Bassmaster class. They had me do a seminar at one of the local dealers for one of the classics. And Polinick comes up and he goes, dude, I'm going to be fishing against you someday. And he just picked my brain about, he wanted to listen to everything I said up on stage about swim baits. And this is this young Polinick kid. And you could ask him about this. I was like, this kid goes, someday I'm going to be fishing against you. And he was like, he was drinking information. And if an expert in a field, if it was Clun on crankbaits and square bills, if it was Biffle on flipping and pitching, if it was me on swim baits, Polinick was in the dang audience. And he was taking notes and learning. This kid was drinking information. And, you know, when you do these seminars, you give all the juice. Yeah. You know, you don't give the juice around your pros, but you're doing a seminar. You got an hour to talk. So just, it's diarrhea of the mouth, man. You're just going to let it rip. And I let it go. And Polinick took notes and listened. And it's so cool because he's a master at it. But I remember when he was just like, dude, I'm coming for you guys. And I'm going to be on the Elite Tour. And I'm going to, and him and I, when Skeet won Gunnersville, because I gave him the bait, the Bastrix, the 8-inch Bastrix.
Dude, he actually said that. He said that you're the reason that he won that.
Zona says, if you don't room with Skeet and tell Skeet, you win the tournament. I go, yeah. We were there together. Polinick was fishing the same area as me, and we were talking. And he goes, dude, I'm going to give you room because you might win this thing. Because I was telling him how much weight I had, you know, the last day.
You also lost a ton of fish that tournament, though.
Dude, they didn't have a camera on me the final day. Ike and Ellie was leading it by a long shot. Skeet and I were in like, 7th and 8th the last day. Everybody else fell apart. Skeet wins it. I get second, lost a lot of fish, and we're rooming together. And if I wouldn't have told Skeet, he was in the hunt for Angler of the Year, and he was me and Murray and him are at the house. And he's like, dude, Angler of the Year, I'm not catching them. Practice sucks. And I'm like, they are crushing gizzard shad, bro. There are dead gizzard shad all over the place. Have you noticed the teeth marks on them? I got this Bass Tricks 8-inch. It's not even out yet. And I give him the baits. And, poker players chop the pot. You play poker.
Yeah.
I go, let's chop the pot, Skeet. He goes, no, bro. I go, let's take what I want and you want and split it down the middle. Is what he got.
Those are photos that I took in 2009 of that event.
Oh, yeah. And I'm losing fish like crazy. I had so many big ones on. You get so many big ones, and Skeet would not chop the pot. And I'm like, he didn't charge me for the hotel or for the house that week. He goes, hey, because I won, you don't have to pay for the house. Oh my gosh, those are them. That's from the tournament. I love the fact you can get all this stuff going, Matt. God, that was an amazing tournament. So I get second, Skeet gets first, and I was kind of kicking myself for sharing too much, but at the time you do what's right for your friends. And I love Skeet, I love John, and we always worked well together.
Yeah, no, I've got I remember watching you on that. That was that big Bass Tricks.
That was the big 8-inch Bass Tricks. One thing I got to tell you, Bobby Barrick, when I had 83.5 and set the record, which lasted until forward-facing sonar, Scott Martin broke that record in Florida last year. But when I had 83.5, Bobby Barrett calls me up, Matt. What do you got? What do you got? I got to turn my glasses to see these. Oh, yeah. Yeah. God, that was an amazing tournament. You know what I love about Bobby Barrett? I catch 83.5. He calls me up. He's the only person that said, I don't want to hear anything about the tournament other than what the hell did you lose? And I won by 10 pounds. Skeet got second in that tournament at Clear Lake when I won. But Barrick's like, bro, what did you lose? If you caught 83 pounds of bass in 3 days, for 15 fish. And I wanted to reach through the phone and hug him because nobody wants to hear what you lost when you win a tournament by 8 pounds. Nobody wants to hear what you lost. Bobby wanted to hear what I lost because every big one I hooked came off. Like 83 pounds and all the giants came off because the swimbaits were so primitive back then. What was that?
2009.
2009. Don't you?
This is how old this was. These are the listeners. That is Bradley Hallman. I took all these pictures, by the way. This is Bradley Hallman in his, I think, second or third year on the Elite Series with the Skeeter. Just
Bradley Hallman. Oh my gosh.
I still chat with him. He has agreed to come on BTL one time a year just to let everybody know what's going on.
Oh, that's cool. Bradley was a cool dude, man.
Yeah, he's still cool. He's big into hunting now.
It's amazing when these guys retire like I did. You never know what happened to them. But I'm still, Trika is letting me do swim bait rods, and Livingston let me do baits and guiding and eBay. Oh my gosh.
I put the link, by the way, the Bass Talk Live link there I have the link to Byron's Bunker in the description. That is the direct link if you want to get on the water and bid on your instructional how-to guided fishing trip.
Hey, did you see Rick Clunn signing baits for me? He's got a whole bunch of pose, and Rick's like, dude, I wouldn't do this for anybody but you, but I'll sign a bunch of my old pose autographed by Rick Clunn and let you sell them exclusively for me. And I thank you, Rick, so much for, giving me a chance to sell some pose Rick Clunn autographed crankbaits. I think that's pretty darn cool.
Dude, I have waited in line for one autograph. I have Skeets. The only autographs I've ever gotten since I got into this, I've got a jersey when I was 12 and went to the Bassmaster Classic where I had everyone sign it, I have Skeet, I have Shaw Grigsby, I have Rick Ash. I got a great picture of Rick Ash catching a smallmouth, so I had him sign it. And then at this past year's Classic, I went and I spent $30 on a Rick Clunn hat.
Oh, yes!
And Rick looked at me and he's like, shouldn't you be playing poker? And I was like, no, I want this for the studio. And I got the Rick Clunn signature series, like the kind of, I've been in the desert for a month fasting hat with the, I don't know how else to explain that. Like,
that's such a great way to put it.
With the
Rick Clunn, I've been in the desert fasting, wearing the Holy Roller Teva sandals. Remember, he always wore the Holy Roller Tevas. So
and
that's the hat that matches the Tevas, man. Yeah. That's a Teva hat.
Oh, dude, you'll like this.
Dude, I got that same hat in my freaking in my collection that I'll never.
I
sell.
do a deal with Frank Scalish every week. He was talking about the old jitterbugs. My dad, the last time I saw my parents, he freaking got that for me. Look at that jitterbug.
Oh, no way. Turn it to the side again. I want to see it in the side. Oh my God, it's got double legs on it.
Yeah.
I love that.
I got all sorts of stuff.
Hey, Matt, do you want me to send you one of these Rick Clunn pose baits to put up there?
No, I'm good.
Okay.
I got the Rick. Plus, Rick's fishing the opens now. He's still fishing. I got access to him.
Yeah, I didn't know if you wanted the pose bait that I have because
I told this story on it. The last open, he asked how I did, and I told him this stupid ass story about how I hooked a rock and thought it was a fish, and like literally, he's sitting in his boat just looking at me, and then I walked away, and I was like, idiot. Why did I tell Rick Clunn that story? I should have just been like, oh, it was a tough day, Rick, but I got a couple. How about you? Instead, I went into great detail about how I freaking hooked this rock on a freaking crankbait and I fought it all the way in and I thought it was a big largemouth. And he's just like, oh, good story, bro.
You're talking to a guy that understands hydrodynamics to where if a fish swims in front of his bait, he can tell that a fish moved out of the way of his crankbait. And you're over there telling him you hooked a rock and thought it was a bass all the way to the boat. He's got to be thinking, what the hell?
Yeah. And then his story was like how a 6-pounder ate a spinnerbait 3 feet from the boat and he had to walk it around the boat to land it. And I literally was like, that's a way cooler story than mine, Rick. Good luck tomorrow.
You know, man, I can sympathize with you because I was so embarrassed years and years and years ago. I was fishing for a boat on Lake Pleasant. They used to give away boats at every tournament. It was a team tournament. Yeah. I fought a shale rock all the way to the boat. And you know the deal. I know it. It goes sideways. And when you stop, it goes down.
Yeah.
And then you pull up and you keep going. You're like, oh my God, get the net. And I brought the shale rock all the way to the boat. And I'm telling my partner, dude, this is the one we need. This is the one we need. He gets the net. He has the net. And I finally gets up and it's a shale rock. And I'm like,
it was 43-degree water. So I wasn't expecting him to tail walk. You know, I had just caught one and it had stayed low and it had just been like, I wasn't even sure I had one. I was like, you know, something's funny. And it was a keeper. So this one, you know, I pause it, and as soon as I started, it loads up, and then it rolls on the bottom, then it comes off of the ledge, and now it's really freaking on there. I'm by myself. I mean, I'm sitting in the passenger seat, and this thing's rolling down there, and I mean, I bring it up, and it's.
Did you keep the rock? That'd be funny if you kept the rock.
Oh
my God.
I legally am not allowed to keep a rock from that portion of Kentucky Lake. I looked it up.
Hey, you know what, Matt? I can only laugh so hard because my partner with the net looked at me like I had, you know, lost my mind. He literally throws the net down. He goes, "You made me quit fishing so you could fight a rock all the way to the boat." Yeah. And I can laugh so hard because I had the same embarrassing moment with a partner that thought, "You're a pro? Like you're a pro and you fish professionally and you made me sit here with a net telling me how great this fish was and how it was staying down." It was a big
it happens on a cranking rod though, because you have so much stretch and so much move. You know what I mean? So the only other time I did it was in college. I flipped a 3/4 ounce jig on Lake Dardanelle through the eye socket of a beaver skull. And I lifted up on it and it started you know what I mean? Like I lifted up on the skull. It's wedged. You did 1 in a million. It's wedged in the eye socket and the line starts moving off to the left. And I reel down and I tell Chip, I said, there it is. And I'm like cranking it and it's, you know, and I go, I don't think it's very big. And it comes up and it's a beaver skull.
Oh my gosh. Wow.
I kept that one for years. It was completely clean. I mean, it had been dead on the bottom, just sitting there and the jig went right through it.
That's crazy.
Wow. Yeah, I think everyone's had that happen. I mean, I fought a fishing rod and reel one time in a tournament, hooked it right through the tip of the eye like a Zebco. Yeah, that feels like a bass. A long cast with a trap on a flat where you're going like this, and all of a sudden it gets the eye of the rod.
Yep. Yeah, I know it. I mean, it's embarrassing, but I've lived it too, so I'm not ashamed to admit it and tell you that I've walked in your shoes on that embarrassing time that happened. I think it's funny it happened with you with Rick Clunn, but I don't think I've ever told Rick that story, and now he knows about it after watching Bass Talk Live today.
I have a feeling Rick has better things to do this time.
I actually got a message from Melissa. He's on the road right now, going to a turn. Or no, he's going to. I think his son's graduating college. Okay. My daughter graduates middle school tonight.
And congratulations!
Graduates college today.
Congratulations! It is that time.
It's that night. Yeah.
Do you keep up with like what's going on in the tournament scene now, like over on MLF and the Elite Series, or?
Only if Livingston tells me that, we got to look at something, but I try not to. Again, it's just difficult. It's like you got to go cold turkey when you quit prematurely, because it's not, I can't be a fan of the sport because I feel like I retired too young, but I did the right thing for my daughter, and I did the right thing for my family. I had to come home and be a dad. And that was, the most important thing, that decision I could have ever made. Get out of the television. Who needs to make another Bassmaster Classic or be another host for another fishing show? I needed to go home, but I noticed real quick, I couldn't stand seeing it on television. Like my friends would call me up and I didn't even know where they were at. Like I'd call Skeet or Ish or Murray or any of the guys or Clun, and they'd all be like, "Oh, I'm practicing whatever." And I don't even want to know where they're at or what they're practicing, because it takes me back to that memory of competing. And I was so into the fishing television shows and the tours. I fished MLF, FLW, and BAS, the elites. And so I was all in for it, and until I couldn't be anymore. So Matt, to answer your question, I get information from you and other guys. They kind of tell me what's going on, but I do keep it kind of distant because it's bittersweet for sure.
Any desire? I know what Billy's doing out there on the West Coast. There's some BAM stuff that's going on. Any desire to jump in the Arizona Open, the Clear Lake Open, the US Open, and maybe just kind of maybe a little soft entry back into it and get on the water 3 or 4 times a year?
I'll be honest with you. I have fished I fished the last Clear Lake Open, 2 Clear Lake Opens, and the last US Opens. And this is kind of strange, but you always felt like you could win a tournament back in the day. I always enjoyed the feeling of I have a chance. It used to be you felt like you were one of the 20 or 30 guys that could win if it was out.
Well, I mean, you've done it twice, so.
Yeah, but you felt like you could win. Even if you didn't win, you were in the top 5, top 10, top 20, but now forward-facing sonar and these kids are in such a dominance. It's impossible for me to catch up. My daughter can be in the boat with me and she can figure out my cone angle better than I can. She's 13. She can tell me why I can't. She can help me find my bait at 13, and she doesn't like to fish, but she's like, "Dad, how can you not see this?" And I'm like, and Rick Clun had the same thing with River, his son River, same thing. Rick and I have talked about this. I can't even crack the top 30 anymore. And because forward-facing sonar is so dominant, you just feel as though you're fishing, if you're still fishing traditional ways, and all those guys are out in the middle of the lake and they're so good at it. Like I have learned how good they are at it. There's good forward-facing sonar guys. Then there's monsters, gurus, guys that run circles around other forward-facing sonar guys, the electronic guys. And I can remember, Matt, when sight fishing was first coming in, I was really good at it at a very young age. My very first US Open, I won sight fishing. That was April of 1990. What was that, Matt? You probably know.
I didn't even know that they had one in April.
They had a US Open in April.
You finally outaged me on my fishing knowledge, Byron.
I was 26 years old, Matt. I was 26 years old, and the US Open was in April. Bassmaster came to Lake Mead, and all the guys were there. Zell Olin, Jimmy Houston, Rick Clun, Denny Brower, everybody was there, and they had the Open directly after Bassmaster in 1990. I think it was 1990. 88, 90 probably. And I was bed fishing, and nobody was bed fishing. And I'm driving around the lake during Bassmasters, and nobody's on the water bed fishing. And I'm looking around all these bed fish, and I'm like, oh my gosh, like that. I was in it a very, very early time. So much like forward-facing sonar, I could go out and I could see guys bed fishing and realize they were doing it wrong. The boat was too close. They were fishing for the male. I'll wait till they leave. I'll go catch the female, because they probably don't realize there's a female near that bed. So I was using the guys as beacons, or as they would help me locate big females by fishing the males and catching the males for me. So I had all these little tricks. I take that knowledge of what I had for sight fishing back in the day and how I felt like I was really good at it. Now these forward-facing sonar guys run circles around other guys trying it, and I'm too old and too cumbersome. I can't move the transducer properly and take that flashlight and look at it properly, and I just feel as though I've aged out. So if I go to an Open now, to answer your question, I think if I go to an Open now, it's just for fun, but it's not to be anywhere near the top 10, because I don't have the skill set. I just don't have the skill set. It'd be like me going to a sight fishing tournament back in the day and not bed fishing when you knew bed fishing was going to win.
That's a good comparison. I never thought of it like that.
That's, for me, that's the way it is. If I went to a springtime wide open bed fishing and I decided I had a rule against not bed fishing, I'd realize I'm fishing for 30th place at best, because the bed fishermen are going to kick my butt. Well, I used to be one of those premier bed fishermen. Now you got guys that are I learned at the last US Open, there was a forward facing sonar kid that I helped out, and I'm going to find out his name. And Brian Thrift, that's who won, right? That's the guy that wins everything, Brian Thrift, right? I think he won the U.S. Open this last year, but he's always up there. He was running circles around everybody out there.
No.
All these guys were out there forward-facing sonar, and he was zipping around out there like I used to bed fish. He's just driving around 100 miles an hour on his trolling motor. He would only fish for the 3 and 4 and 5 pounders. He knew if they were going to bite, he'd make the perfect cast, catch the fish, and move on, and literally was just putting on a clinic in the middle of the lake. Brian Smith.
Yeah.
I'm over there, Matt, on the bank, old school Byron, with his electronics off, fishing my Whopper Plopper Livingston Plop Master, and I'm watching in awe of this thing happening out there and just going, my God, I'm not even in the ballpark anymore. Like I'm a dinosaur. You know, I own it. I'm a dinosaur. And if I go to a tournament now, Matt, it's just for fun, and I can't do that. So I'm just going to stay home and sell all my fishing tackle on eBay.
On Byron's Bunker, which you can look up on eBay.
Hey, I got to tell you, if anybody watches Bass Talk Live today, and if they buy anything, I'm going to throw in some extra stuff. And if they follow, just please follow it, because I got to list like 100 more things this week. But anybody says, hey, I saw you on Bass Talk Live, I got a whole bunch of cool stuff to throw in, some Livingston lures maybe, or maybe one of the really hot Livingston jerkbaits. But I want to offer that to any of the BTL audience out there. If they,
oh yeah, links in the description of the show on iTunes and on YouTube.
I want to give your listeners and your viewers something if they just even mention it. And if they please follow my thing, because I got 100 more things to list this week. I just got to get rid of everything, man. I'll get rid of your stuff too. Brody's the king of this, and I'm just trying to follow.
Dude, I have done an exceptionally good job of keeping clutter out of my tackle room. Like I give away stuff, I sell it dirt cheap. Like my rule, unless it's something, you know, like wiggle warts or something like that. But if it's something, you know, I'm like, is this pack of plastics ever going to actually be used? And if the answer to that is no, it's gone. So,
you know what, Matt, I like about eBay? I got all this stuff that I'll never use, and I could just throw it away or put it in a garage sale. A Blade Dancer by Berkeley. Remember the Blade Dancers? I don't even remember that thing.
I can't.
It's just this weird bait. I had a guy up north that saw me put one on eBay. He goes, "Oh my God, I haven't seen these in 10 years. How many do you have?"
Yeah, I remember that. It's
me
like
and my kids.
It's like a soft plastic credge.
Yeah, it was kind of like a bad scrounger. You know what I mean? It's like before Aaron Martin's like the scrounger head. It was this. I don't even know how to describe what the Blade Dancer is. Matt, the guy bought every one I could find in my garage and everywhere. He goes, "I want to corner the market on this bait because they don't exist." Here's the cool thing about eBay. If I put it on eBay, somebody can't believe I still have it, and it helps them go fishing and catch more fish. I got guys saying, "You still got the old power craws? You got the chigger craws? You got the Blade Dancers? You got the wiggle warts, the bandits?" And so what I like is it's not so much, I mean, eBay is great, but I like people interacting saying, "Dude, if you still have the old Lucky Craft Rick Clunn crankbait, please post them because I haven't seen them in 10 years. And those guys can't find them anymore and they want to go fishing with them." And that's cool because it's going to a good home. You know what I mean? It's going somewhere that it's appreciated instead of just thrown out or try to sell at a garage sale here. It's a waste of time.
We could have gotten into a lot more stuff here. We're already an hour and 15 minutes in.
Oh, dude, I'm so sorry.
No, that's not an apology. That's the beauty of the
I know you said 45 minutes. I'm so sorry. Oh my God.
No. I was just giving you a ballpark. That's the beauty of the podcast platform is there really is no time. Like, dude, it was so good. We went an hour and 14 minutes straight. I didn't even take a commercial break.
Dude, thank you so much, man. This has been great. Well,
you are the Guide's Eyes or Bass Center or any of that stuff.
We'll save that for next time. I'll come on again if you want me to. We can talk about if you want me on again. I'll never reach Ken Duke status of 40 shows, but I could say the way you pull stuff up, bro, and the way you got pictures and the way you're grabbing stuff. I've never been on a podcast in my life that was so like animated. I will say this. It kind of came together a little bit better than I thought it would have in the beginning part of the show. Like it just kind of, it's like we had a 500-piece puzzle and we happened to just grab the first 4 pieces that fit together right out of the box. So. Dude, if you want to do Bass Center in the future, I know we're out of time now, but I can see the preparation you're doing, and I would love to sit there because you're making me teary-eyed because you're walking me through memory lane of the stuff that I lived, and a lot of it I've forgotten about. So thank you for the format and the venue to do this. This has been an awesome morning, and I appreciate the listeners just staying with us and watching this. This has been cool, man.
Yeah.
This has really been cool.
So like I said, I'm recording with Big Daddy Todd Woods after we're done here. It won't air until next week, but he's a West Coast legend.
Todd Woods is a great friend. We share a lot of time. We see each other a lot. We're two bank beaters at the U.S. Open. We shake our heads, but him and I are him and two old dinosaurs. The last 2 times I've seen Todd Woods was on Mojave at the U.S. Open 2 years in a row. We're fishing the same stuff, and we both know we're getting our butts handed to us because we're both in the back of a pocket or on a flat somewhere. And I'm like, "You fishing for fun, Todd? Fishing for fun." But he is a good guy to talk about with the Gangcraft, Havasu, and that's man.
He's done a bunch. I actually saw him at the Classic, and I obviously knew who he was. Hadn't talked to him before, and he's like, "Hey man, like I'd love to get on BTL." I was like, "You listen to BTL?" And he's like, "Yeah." And I was like, "Say no more. You should have reached out sooner." So we've been working for a couple months, kind of since the Classic, to get it. I had him on. He's like, "Hey, I'm fishing that Arizona Open, but I can do it this week." I'm like, "Well, I'm at an Open this week," and he's doing a bunch of stuff with Cast for Kids, some charities, some things like that. But I also have a lot of questions to ask him. He won as a co-angler in 2023, right?
He signed up as a co-angler and
no,
won as a co-angler.
I think there's a story to it that I'm looking forward to asking.
Oh, I can't wait for you to hear that story. I'm not going to even spoil it.
Well, I don't really know it, just from the research that I've done. I talked to a couple guys about it, and I think there's more to that story. I don't think it was like, "Hey, I'm going to go kick everyone's butt as a co-angler." I think it was one of those weird things that just like manifested itself. And then
I won't say anything about it, but it was epic. And I mean, I'm proud of Todd. That was epic. And he and I laughed about that multiple times ever since that happened. He's a dear friend, amazing guy, super swimbait dude. And Todd Woods is money. I'm glad to hear you're having him on the show, bro.
All right. Well, I appreciate it, Byron. Like I said, if you guys have a chance and opportunity, the link for Byron's Bunker on eBay is in the YouTube description. If you go to his Byron's Bunker eBay page and then scroll to the second page, if you want to get on the water with Byron on, basically it sounds like a private fishery there on Canyon. Showed some of those pictures in the beginning. The options are down there to get one of those trips, a Swimbait trip also. And can't thank you enough, dude. It was good. We kind of memory lane reminiscing back in the day.
Hey man, I know you.
I actually was. You talk about getting rid of stuff. So I was cleaning out the garage yesterday. My buddy Juice was over. This was 2 days ago. My buddy Juice was over, and I had the stack of rods that I don't use anymore. And I had Ducket White Ice 711 extra heavy Byron Velvick Signature Series Swimbait rod in there. And I said, he's getting into the glide too. I said, "Would you throw that?" And he's like, "Hell yeah." I said, "It's yours." So it's still getting put to good use. It hadn't been in the water on the water in a couple years. So
hey, make sure at ICAST, they're probably going to launch it. The Trica let me do. Do you remember Rogue Rod? Let me do a swimbait rod a million years ago. Did you ever hear about the Rogue?
Yes.
The Rogue Rod swimbait rods. They let me do 3 models because swimbaits go from 3 inches to 13 inches. So I told Trica, we need to do that. We need the bigger guides. That was the problem with Ducket. They had the micro guides. So it's hard to throw a big swimbait or Alabama rig on that rod you're talking about, Matt, because it had micro guides on it. So Trica has full-blown heavy rods, but we did 3 models of the Predator series. Is that the Trica? Oh, they don't have it on there yet. The Predator series hasn't come out yet, but Trica is doing a series of swimbait rods for me, just like Rogue did, except better quality, lighter, amazing rods. But Trica, you got to check this out. They're going to have a small rod, a middle rod, and a big rod, which is what I told Ducket we needed to do. Because if you say swimbait rod, dude, are you throwing a 4-inch Bass Tricks or a 14-inch, whatever the big baits are now, the giant baits? I hear about the Hinkles and the Depths and the whatever the giant Piz. But that's where you need to have 3 rods in succession. So I think ICAST, Trica will hopefully launch that thing. And that, to your point, is a key thing with swim baits, is you got to have those. You got to have the right rod for the right thing, just like a crankbait rod. Yeah.
That Ducket rod, I did a lot of trolling with that thing, with Alabama rigs, with Carolina rig weights in front of it on Lake Texoma for stripers.
Yeah.
You take a punching weight and you just put it right in front of your Alabama rig, a 1 ounce punching weight, and then you put 3/8 ounce, and then you just that rod was good. It could get it away from the boat. You could get that Alabama rig down and then troll it around the striper guides.
Oh yeah,
with Jeffries.
Oh, you'd crush them doing that.
Yeah.
That's a good idea. I got to try that in Canyon. They got 30 and 40 pound stripers.
Oh yeah, just take a full size Alabama rig and then put a couple bobber stops and then put a punch weight in front of it, and that thing will freaking get down.
So, there's a bunch of standing timber in Canyon, and so I was warned, do not throw a swim bait that you don't want to lose, because there is that chance that 30 or 40 pound striper will come out of one of those big giant trees. There's 40-foot oak trees.
Oh, you're not stopping a 30 pounder. I don't care what you have on.
They're done. And they're zebra mussels. You hook a big, and there goes your $300, $400 glide bait.
I didn't understand how big a striper was till we did a media event at Hartwell and a couple weeks ago. And I hook one on a minnow, and I'm like, I'm with like 3 Japanese dudes who are not fluent in English, and they're like, "Oh my god!" I was like, "Yeah, no." I said, "This is the biggest striper I've ever had." So I land it, and they're like, "How big?" And I'm like, 20 pounds, easy 20 pounder, like biggest striper of my life. So I put it on the Bubba scale. It's like 13.94.
Isn't that
and
crazy?
I'm like, oh my god! Like, how is something this big only 14 pounds? So then you hear that. I'm like, I can't imagine what a big one looks like. So the next day, get a call from Cliff Perch, and he's like, "Hey, I'm 20 minutes into this fight. Where are you? Are you shooting anything? Are you good?" And I said, "No, I can be there." And he's got one bowed up, and it takes him a quarter mile. He ends up landing it, and I'm thinking 30, 35 pounds, like no doubt. I mean, this thing is as big as Cliff Perch. Like all you see is like the hair sticking out of his visor and his Jerusalem cruisers when he's like holding it. That's it. The rest is just fish. And he put it on the scales, and it was a 22 pounder.
Yeah.
Which is a massive striper. So you get 25, 30, 40 pound striper. You're like, okay, like, I mean, it took him probably 35 minutes to land the dang thing. We went Instagram live for 20 minutes.
2 years ago, a guy at Canyon Lake posted, he's standing alongside a 42-pound striper at Canyon Lake.
Oh my gosh.
Matt, it looks like he's standing next to a full-grown adult person fish.
Yeah.
He's got it on the scale, and it's wide and long, but there's the scale. It says 42 pounds, 5 ounces at a Canyon, and you're like, oh my gosh, that thing is to your point, it's the size of a grown man, full-blown grown man, like big guy. And that's you don't want to throw your expensive glide baits in Canyon around those trees. And I won't throw the high end stuff other than to show it to somebody, but I will not fish it hard because I don't want to lose those baits to a 30-pound striper legitimately.
Yeah. All right, I'm gonna let you go, Byron. I appreciate it.
Thanks for having me on the show. Thank you, everybody. Follow me, and I'll send a bunch of stuff to y'all.
See ya.
Yeah, see ya.
There you go. I feel confident saying the one and only Byron Velvick. I'm going to take a risk of angry sponsors by just saying I'm not going to run any commercials today. We're an hour and 23 minutes in. You guys know who support the show. You guys do a fantastic job of supporting those sponsors, which allows BTL to come to you free of charge 4 times a week. And we'll be back with a live day 4 with Frank Scalish tomorrow. We're going to take a deep dive back into the Deep Dive app. We're going to talk about hard spots. We're going to talk about wind and how it plays in the post spawn and where you should be fishing. But that's all we got for today. This has been another edition of Bass Talk Live. Same place, same time. Tomorrow we will talk to everybody then. See ya.